Eli sat on the porch steps, legs swinging idly, his stuffed rabbit tucked under his arm. Lila played beside him with the chipped teacup she'd found in the kitchen. They looked like ordinary kids again, for a fleeting moment, until the white child services car rolled up the drive. Jake felt it before he saw it. That tightening in his chest, the same one he used to feel before every fight that mattered. Karen Miller stepped out of the car, clipboard under one arm, a weary expression softening her face. She wasn't there to argue this time, but her eyes told him she still didn't trust him. "Morning," she said quietly. Jake nodded. They slept well. "Mom's awake." "That's good news," she replied. "I'll speak with her and the children. We'll get them placed temporarily until she's strong enough." Jake's jaw tightened. "You mean separated?" Karen hesitated. "It's not permanent, Mr. Turner. It's procedure." He laughed under his breath, a sound without joy. Funny how many bad things start with that word. Dr. Singh came to the door, smiling faintly. "She's ready to see you, Karen. She's weak, but lucid." Inside, the mother sat propped against a pillow, her face pale but peaceful. The faint hum of the four-pump filled the silence. When she saw Jake, her eyes welled with tears. "You stayed," she whispered again, her voice rasping. Jake nodded gently. "Couldn't leave you like that." Karen sat beside her. "Mrs. Ward, we're here to help. Your husband's in custody. You and your children will be taken somewhere safe until you're ready to live independently." The woman's lips trembled. "Will they be together?" "Yes," Karen said softly. "That's my promise." Eli stood by the door, clutching Lila's hand. His small voice broke the silence. "Can Jake come too?" Jake swallowed hard. "Not this time, buddy. Why not?" Lila asked, frowning. "You made the bad man go away." Jake crouched down in front of them. "Because sometimes the people who fix things aren't meant to stay. They just make sure you can stand on your own." Eli's chin quivered. "But we don't want to stand alone." Jake smiled faintly. "You won't. You've got each other. And your mom. That's what matters." Bear turned away, blinking fast. Even Ghost rubbed a hand across his eyes, pretending it was dust. Karen cleared her throat gently. "It's time." The kids hugged Jake so hard it hurt. He wrapped his arms around both, closing his eyes, breathing in the smell of rain and soap and innocence. "You remember something from me, yeah?" he whispered. "When life gets loud and people treat you like you don't belong, you hold your head high anyway. That's your revenge." Eli nodded into his chest. "We will." When they finally pulled away, Jake stood on the porch, watching as Karen helped the mother and children into the car. Dr. Singh lingered beside him. "You did something good here, Jake. Don't ruin it by doubting it." He let out a long breath. "You ever feel like every time you try to make up for one wrong, the world throws another test your way?" She smiled sadly. "Maybe that's what redemption is, not a finish line, just a long road home." The car began to roll down the dirt path, kicking up soft trails of dust behind it. Eli looked out the back window, waving weakly. Jake raised a hand in return, his throat too tight for words. Ghost stepped beside him. "You all right, boss?" Jake nodded slowly. "No, but maybe that's the point." As the car disappeared beyond the hills, Jake turned toward his bike, the road waiting like an old promise, knowing that sometimes saving others was the only way to forgive yourself. 3 days later, the farmhouse stood empty again. The rain had washed away the mud and blood, leaving only damp earth and silence. The steel serpents gathered by their bikes, loading the last of their gear. The place looked almost peaceful now, as if it had been waiting years for someone to care, even for a little while. Jake stood in the doorway, hands on his hips, staring into the hollow room. The couch where the mother had lain was gone. So was the soft pink blanket that had covered her children. But the air still carried their memory, laughter faintly echoing through the boards, the smell of coffee and rain lingering like a ghost that refused to leave. Ghost clapped him on the shoulder. "Time to roll, brother." Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, time." Bear lit a cigarette, blowing smoke toward the horizon. "You think the state did right by them?" Jake's jaw tightened. "Don't know. but I like to think maybe they're sleeping somewhere warm tonight. That's enough for me." The roar of engines broke the quiet as the crew mounted their Harleys, the rumble blending with the wind. But before Jake could start his bike, a small white sedan appeared at the edge of the road. He froze. The door opened, and Karen Miller, the caseworker, stepped out, holding a brown envelope against her chest. Her usual briskness was gone. This time she looked almost human. "Mr. Turner," she called over the rumble. Jake cut the engine, walking toward her. "Something wrong?" She shook her head. "Something right, actually." She handed him the envelope. Inside was a letter, shaky handwriting scrawled across hospital stationery. He recognized it immediately. "Jake, thank you for saving us. The kids talk about you every day. When we get our own place, they want to paint their bikes red like yours. Tell your friends they're heroes, too. You said redemption comes from doing what's right, not what's easy. I believe that now. With love, Claire." Jake blinked, swallowing a lump in his throat. "She wrote this herself?" Karen nodded. "She's in recovery housing. Kids are with her. Safe. The system actually listened this time, partly because of you." Ghost grinned. "Guess miracles happen, huh?" Karen smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised what people do when someone stands up first." She turned to leave, then hesitated. "You may not realize it, Mr. Turner, but what you did changed how some of us see people like you. That's worth something." Jake looked down at the letter, then back at her. "Appreciate that, ma'am." She nodded once and drove away, leaving only the fading sound of tires on gravel. Bear let out a low whistle. "You ever think we'd get a thank you letter from Child Services?" Jake chuckled softly. "Didn't even know that was legal." The crew laughed, the kind of laughter that carried both exhaustion and relief. As the sun broke through the clouds, painting the road in gold. Jake strapped the letter to the inside of his vest, right where his old club patch used to cover the scar on his chest. Ghost revved his engine. "Where to, boss?" Jake swung his leg over his bike, pulling on his gloves. "Wherever the next road needs fixing." They rode out together, a blur of chrome and thunder, engines echoing through the Tennessee hills. The forest bent gently in the wind as if bowing farewell to the men who had come and gone like a storm. Miles down the highway, Jake slowed his bike and looked in his side mirror, the sun reflecting off it just right. For an instant, he saw Eli's face smiling back. Laughing in the golden light, he smiled too. "Ride safe." "Kid," he murmured. Then he twisted the throttle. And the world turned into motion again, a river of wind and freedom. For the first time in years, Jake Turner didn't feel like a man running from his past. He felt like someone riding toward a future he'd finally earned. Sometimes redemption doesn't roar. It just rides quietly away, leaving the world a little kinder than before. Karen didn't look away from Jake. People rarely change as much as they think they do. Jake's voice dropped to a low rumble. "You're standing in a house full of men who've been trying to prove otherwise every damn day since we crawled out of hell." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Karen finally sighed, closing her clipboard. "I'll be back tomorrow with paperwork. Until then, the children stay here, under observation. No funny business." Dr. Singh exhaled in relief. "Thank you." Karen gave one last glance at Jake. "You seem like a man who wants redemption. Be careful. It's a hard thing to earn and an easy thing to lose." She walked out into the afternoon light, her sedan disappearing down the muddy road. Jake stood there, fists still clenched, heart pounding like a drum. Eli looked up at him. "She's gonna take us, isn't she?" Jake didn't answer. His voice came out hoarse. "Not if I can stop it." Ghost came up beside him. "You just went head-to-head with the system, brother. You sure you're ready for that?" Jake looked toward the forest where the father had vanished hours ago. His eyes darkened. "I fought worse. Rehook gives." But that night, as the sun fell behind the hills, a shadow moved by the tree line, watching, waiting, and Jake realized their fight was far from over. The night came slow and heavy, smothering the woods in silence. The storm had passed, but its ghost lingered. Damp earth, wet pine, the faint hiss of wind through the leaves. Inside the old farmhouse, the steel serpents rested in shifts. Dr. Singh dozed lightly near the couch, one hand on the mother's wrist, checking her pulse. Ghost sat by the window with a shotgun laid across his knees. Mason and Bear were outside near the porch, smoking quietly under the dim orange glow of a lantern. Jake couldn't sleep. He stood at the edge of the yard, staring into the black stretch of trees. Every instinct in him buzzed with the same message. Danger wasn't gone. It was circling back. He'd spent years trying to bury the old version of himself, the man who'd solved every problem with his fists. But tonight, the line between that man and the one he'd become felt thinner than ever. A twig snapped in the woods. Jake froze. His hand went instinctively to the knife on his belt. Another sound, soft footsteps. Deliberate, moving closer. "Ghost," Jake whispered. "We got movement." Ghost was instantly alert. He slid the window open, scanning the yard. Mason and Bear stubbled out their cigarettes, stepping into the shadows, weapons ready. A figure emerged from the tree line, tall, staggering slightly, dragging something behind him. Jake squinted. The glint of metal caught the lantern light. It was the father. And in his hand, a shotgun. "Aw, hell," Mason muttered. Jake stepped forward, his voice loud and steady. "Put it down, Ward." The man's laugh was hoarse. "You think you can just take my family? My kids? You don't know what's mine." Eli's small face appeared in the window. "Dad?" Jake motioned quickly. "Back inside, Eli, now." The boy disappeared. Ward lifted the gun higher, his eyes glassy, movements jerky. "You think you're heroes, but I know what you are. Trash and leather." Jake kept his tone even. "You want to talk, we'll talk. But you fire that thing, and you'll never see another sunrise." Ward's jaw trembled. He wasn't listening anymore, too far gone into booze and rage. Ghost moved silently through the side door, circling left. Bear flanked the right. They'd done this dance before, too many times to count. Ward took another shaky step forward, finger tightening on the trigger. "She called the cops on me. Said I was dangerous. You put that in her head." Jake's heart pounded. "No one had to tell her. You did that all on your own." Ward screamed, a broken, wild sound, and fired. The blast tore through the night, echoing like thunder. Wood splintered from the porch post. The kid screamed inside. Jake dropped to one knee, adrenaline flooding him. Ghost fired a warning shot into the air. "Drop it, Ward, now." Ward swung toward the sound, and that's when Jake moved. He lunged forward, knocking the gun aside. The two men crashed into the mud, rolling hard. Ward swung wildly, landing a blow across Jake's cheek. Jake retaliated, catching him square in the chest, sending him sprawling. The shotgun clattered into the dirt. Jake stood over him, chest heaving. "It's over," he growled. "Don't make me do this." Ward spat blood. "You think you're better than me?" Jake's voice was raw. "No, just trying to be." For a long moment, Ward just lay there, rain beginning to fall again, soft, relentless. His breath came ragged, his eyes empty. "I just wanted them to need me again," he whispered. Jake's anger broke. He crouched beside the man, shaking his head. "Then you should have been the man they needed." Bear stepped forward, kicking the gun away. "He's done, boss." Jake nodded, breath slowing. "Tie him up. Sheriff's taking him this time." From the window, Eli watched, tears streaking his face. Lila held his hand tightly. Jake looked up at them and forced a small, tired smile. "It's over, kids. You're safe now." But deep inside, something told him it wasn't over. Not really. Because saving a family once didn't erase the ghost chasing you home. As sirens echoed faintly in the distance, Jake glanced at his reflection in a puddle, and for the first time, he wasn't sure if he'd just saved someone or become the man he'd sworn never to be again. By the time the sirens reached the farmhouse, the rain had slowed to a whisper. Mist hung over the yard, soft and gray, blurring the world into silence. The steel serpent stood in the mud, wet and weary, as blue and red lights pulsed through the trees. Two sheriff's cruisers and an ambulance pulled up. Doors slammed, radios crackled, boots splashed in puddles. Jake raised his hand slowly, showing empty palms. "He's over there," he said, nodding toward Ward, still tied to the fence post, head hanging low. Guns in the mud beside him. Sheriff Daniels, a broad man with a salt and pepper mustache and suspicion etched into every line of his face, stepped forward. "And who exactly are you?" Jake kept his voice calm. "Name's Jake Turner. We're the ones who called it in." The sheriff's eyes flicked over the scene, the bikes lined up, the battered house, the bruised man in the mud. "You bikers?" "Motorcycle club," Ghost said flatly. Daniel smirked. "That what we're calling it these days?" Bear muttered, "Here we go." Jake's jaw tightened. "We didn't come here to fight, Sheriff. We found those kids starving. Their mom nearly dead. We got them help." Dr. Singh stepped forward from the porch, medical bag in hand. "He's telling the truth. I treated the mother myself. If these men hadn't been here, there'd be 3 bodies in that house right now." The sheriff turned to her. "You a doctor?" "Yes," she said, straightening. "And I'll sign whatever statement you need." Daniels nodded once, but his eyes returned to Jake. "Funny thing, Mr. Turner, you've got a record. Assault, weapons charge, sometime inside." Jake didn't flinch. "That was a long time ago." Daniel circled him slowly like a wolf testing a rival. "See, the problem is, when we show up and see a gang of bikers standing over a half-conscious man with a shotgun, we don't think rescue. We think revenge." Mason stepped forward. "He shot at us first." "Easy," Jake warned under his breath. Dr. Singh snapped. "Sheriff, if you arrest the wrong people today, those children will lose the only safety they've had in years." Daniels looked at her, then at Eli, standing behind her, clutching his sister's hand. The boy's eyes were wide, tear-streaked, but steady. "Please don't take them," he said. "They saved my mom." That stopped the sheriff cold. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint dripping of rain from the trees. Finally, Daniel sighed. "All right. MTs, check the mother. I'll take statements. Nobody leaves until I get the whole story." The tension in Jake's chest eased a fraction. He nodded to his crew. "Let's cooperate. No trouble." As the medics moved past, one of them looked at Jake. "You really did all this?" Jake shrugged. "Just did what needed doing." The medic smiled faintly. "Wish more people thought like that." Inside, the mother stirred weakly on the couch as the EMTs lifted her onto a stretcher. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, landing on Jake. "You stayed," she whispered. "Yeah," he said softly. "We're not done yet." The sheriff finished his notes, wiping rain from his pad. "All right, Turner. For now, you walk free. But if this story turns sideways, I'll find you." Jake gave a tired grin. "I'll be easy to find." As the cruisers prepared to leave, the kids watched from the porch. Eli's voice was small but sure. "Are you leaving too?" Jake knelt to his level. "Not yet. You've still got one more sunrise to see." Ghost leaned close to Jake as they walked back to the bikes. "Think the sheriff believes us?" Jake looked at the horizon, the sun just beginning to burn through the mist. "Doesn't matter," he said quietly. "We know the truth. That's enough." But as the sirens faded into the distance, he noticed the sheriff's car slow at the edge of the road, a silhouette watching from the rear window. The system wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. For the first time, Jake realized saving a family was easy. Proving they deserved to be saved was the real fight ahead. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, turning the soaked yard into a field of gold. Steam lifted from the earth, and for the first time in days, the farmhouse looked alive, fragile, but breathing again. "Eli, go back inside," Jake said quickly, but the boy didn't move. "Why'd you leave us?" The man's expression flickered, guilt, then anger. "I told your mom I needed space. She didn't listen. She never listens." "You promised you'd come back," Eli whispered. "You lied." The man stepped toward him, unsteady on his feet. "Watch your tone, boy." Jake blocked his path. "You're done talking to him like that." The air tightened. Ghost and Mason stepped onto the porch beside Jake. The man's drunk bravado began to fade. "You bikers think you can just take over my house?" "Your house?" Ghost said coldly. "Funny, doesn't look like you've been paying the bills." Dr. Singh appeared in the doorway, her voice sharp. "Mr. Ward, your wife is barely alive. If we hadn't intervened, she might be dead right now. You should be thanking these men." The man's eyes darted to her. "You a doctor?" "I am. And I've already contacted the sheriff about child neglect." The words hit him like a punch. His expression curdled into rage. "You called the cops?" He lunged forward, grabbing Jake's vest, but Jake moved faster. In a flash, the biker's hand shot up, twisting the man's wrist until he cried out and stumbled backward off the porch. Landing in the mud, Jake's voice was calm even. "You touch anyone in that house again, and you'll be crawling instead of walking. You understand me?" The man spat mud, glaring up. "You think you're heroes? You don't know what she's like. She makes everything worse." "Yeah," Jake said softly. "That's what cowards always say." The man scrambled to his feet, furious but scared. "You'll regret this. I'll be back." Jake stared down at him, unblinking. "Not tonight, you won't." He watched as the man climbed into his truck and roared off into the dark, tires spraying mud. Dr. Singh exhaled shakily. "That could have gone much worse." Jake nodded slowly. "Oh, it's not over. Men like him don't just disappear." From behind them, Eli spoke again. "He's coming back, isn't he?" Jake looked at the boy, that terrified honesty in his eyes. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But next time, he won't find us the same." Outside, thunder rumbled again, but inside the house, something else had started to rise too: resolve. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the world slick and gray. Steam rose from puddles across the yard as the sun crawled up behind the trees. The farmhouse, once ghostly in the storm, looked almost peaceful now, though peace was a fragile lie. Jake stood on the porch with a mug of black coffee that Mason had boiled on a camping stove. His jacket was soaked, his eyes heavy from a sleepless night. Inside, the kids were curled up under blankets, their mother still breathing shallowly but steady. Ghost came out beside him, stretching his back. "Think he'll come back?" Jake didn't look away from the tree line. "He's drunk and ashamed. That's a bad mix." "Yeah, he'll come back," Ghost grunted. "Then we'll be ready." The screen door creaked open again. Dr. Singh stepped out, wiping her hands on a towel. "Her vitals are improving," she said. "But she needs real care. A hospital, steady food, counseling. This house won't save her." Jake nodded slowly. "Maybe not, but we will." Dr. Singh studied him. "You can't play guardian angels forever, Mr. Turner." Jake's voice hardened. "Maybe not forever. Just long enough to make sure those kids have a chance." The doctor sighed. "You mean well, but this isn't sustainable. The state will have to get involved." Jake's jaw flexed. "Let M." She hesitated, seeing the weight behind his words, the exhaustion of a man who'd run from his own demons for too long. "All right," she said finally. "Then I'll stay until tomorrow morning. But after that, this becomes official." "Fair enough," Jake replied. When she went back inside, Ghost smirked. "Official, huh? That's not exactly our style." Jake finally allowed himself a thin grin. "Guess we're evolving." By noon, the serpents had split tasks. Mason and Bear patched the roof with spare sheet metal from the barn. Thorn and Colossus cleared debris from the porch and rigged the water pump. The sound of hammering and sawing echoed through the woods, the soundtrack of men trying to atone. Inside, the smell of coffee and soap replaced the stench of decay. Eli sat beside his mom, whispering stories while Dr. Singh checked her blood pressure. Lila sat at the table coloring on old bills, her crayons stubby but bright. Jake watched them from the doorway. The sight tugged something deep inside him, a memory of his own daughter years ago, before his drinking had taken everything away. He stepped outside. Needing air. Bear was tightening a loose gutter. "You look like a man carrying a storm," he said without looking up. "Maybe I am." "You ain't gotta fix the whole world, brother," Bear said. "Just keep this roof from caving in today." Jake smiled faintly. "Maybe that's enough." A distant hum broke their moment. A car engine. Not the father's old truck this time. Something smoother. Official Ghost came running from the yard. "Jake, we got company again." Jake's pulse quickened. "Who?" Ghost pointed down the dirt road. A white sedan was pulling up slow, tires crunching over gravel. Dr. Singh stepped out onto the porch. Her face fell. "That'll be child services. I called them early this morning." Eli appeared behind her, holding Lila's hand. "Are they gonna take us?" he asked, voice shaking. Jake's stomach turned to stone. "Not if I can help it." The car stopped in front of the house. A woman climbed out, mid-40s, tidy suit, clipboard in hand, hair pulled tight. The kind of person who carried authority without needing to shout. Ghost muttered under his breath. "Government trouble." Jake squared his shoulders, stepped off the porch, and met her halfway. She glanced at his leather vest, steel serpents MC, and raised an eyebrow. "You must be Mr. Turner. I'm Karen Miller, Child Protective Services." Jake nodded once. "Ma'am." Karen looked past him toward the kids in the doorway. Her face softened for half a second, then hardened again. "I need to assess the living conditions and speak with the mother, alone." Jake stepped aside, but his voice stayed calm and firm. "You'll do what you have to, but I'm not letting those kids out of my sight." Karen's eyes met his. "We'll see about that." As she walked past him into the house, Jake realized something chilling. This time, the fight wasn't against one violent man. It was against the system itself. Karen Miller's heels clicked sharply against the warped, wooden floor as she entered the house, clipboard pressed to her chest like a badge of judgment. She paused in the middle of the room, scanning the faces, the doctor, the bikers, the two children sitting close together on the couch. "This home," she said slowly, "is not a safe environment for minors." Dr. Singh stepped forward. "They were found here starving. If these men hadn't stopped, they might have died." Karen's expression didn't soften. "I'm grateful they intervened, but that doesn't make them guardians." Jake crossed his arms. "We're not claiming to be. We're just keeping them alive until you folks decide who's supposed to do that." Karen raised an eyebrow. "And who made that decision, you?" Ghost muttered from the corner. "Lady, we're not the villains here." Karen turned her cool gaze toward him. "I'm sure you believe that." Jake felt tension coil in the air. He forced himself to keep calm. "You want to ask questions, ask them. But don't make the kids feel like they did something wrong." Karen studied him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Fine, I'll start with the children." She knelt in front of Eli and Lila, her tone softening slightly. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "Lila," the little girl whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "And this is your brother?" Eli nodded. "Eli Ward." Karen wrote that down neatly. "Can you tell me what happened before these men came?" Eli looked at Jake before answering. "Mom got sick. Dad said he was going to get food, but he didn't come back." Karen's pen hesitated over the paper. "And did he ever hurt you?" The boy's lips trembled. "Not us, but he hurt Mom when he drinks." That quiet confession seemed to pull the air out of the room. Even Karen's professional mask faltered for a heartbeat. She turned to Dr. Singh. "And the mother?" "She's stable now," the doctor replied. "But trauma runs deep. She needs support." Karen jotted another note, her voice returning to formality. "Given these circumstances, the children will likely be placed in temporary custody until we can confirm her recovery." Jake's stomach dropped. "You mean foster care?" "It's standard procedure." He stepped closer, his tone steady but edged. "Ma'am, those kids have been abandoned once already. You take them now, they'll never trust another adult again." Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you think they should stay with the motorcycle club?" "They're safer here than anywhere else tonight," Jake said quietly. Karen met his gaze, unflinching. "Mr. Turner, are you familiar with the term criminal record?" The room went still. Jake didn't move. "Yeah, I'm familiar. I ran your name," she said. "Aggravated assault, bar fight, weapons charge, all from 10 years ago. Does that sound right?" Ghost stepped forward, bristling. "He's not that man anymore." As Bear and Mason thundered out into the rain, Jake helped Eli and Lila sit near their mother. "She be okay," he said, though he wasn't sure if that was true. Ghost leaned near Jake. "You think the dad's coming back?" Jake's eyes drifted toward the broken front door. Wind howled through the frame. "If he does," he said darkly, "he won't like what he finds." The rain outside intensified, hammering the tin roof like an angry drum. The old house seemed to groan under the weight of it, as if the walls themselves were tired of keeping secrets. Eli's voice trembled through the noise. "Mr. Jake, you won't leave, right?" Jake looked at him, this small, dirt-covered boy who'd run barefoot through a storm just to save his family. He swallowed hard. "No, son. Not tonight." Thunder cracked above them, shaking the windows dot and deep in the forest beyond the house. Something moved. A car engine, slow, approaching. Headlights flashed through the trees, and Jake realized whoever was coming down that road might not be coming to help. Rain hammered the tin roof like 1,000 fists. The walls groaned, water dripping through cracks in the ceiling. Jake stood near the window, watching twin beams of light snake through the trees toward the house. "Someone's coming," he said quietly. Ghost was beside him instantly, pulling back the curtain an inch. "Pickup truck," he muttered. "Could be the dad." Jake's stomach tightened. "Or trouble." Eli looked up, wide-eyed. "He came back?" Jake put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Stay behind me, kid. Just in case." Ghost and Thorn moved toward the door. The rest of the crew fell into position, instincts from old lives kicking in. They weren't lawmen, but they knew how to hold ground when things went sideways. The headlights grew brighter, flooding the front of the house. A truck door slammed. "Get ready," Ghost whispered. The door creaked open before Jake could reach it. A woman stepped inside, drenched from the rain, a flashlight in one hand and a medical bag in the other. "Easy," Jake said, lowering his stance. "Who are you?" She blinked, startled by the room full of leather-clad bikers. "Dr. Amrita Singh," she said firmly, shaking water from her hair. "You called for help?" Jake exhaled. Bear and Mason must have found her. Relief washed through him like a sudden thaw. "Yeah," he said. "We did." "She's over here." Dr. Singh crossed the room without hesitation, kneeling beside Eli's mother. She checked vitals with calm precision: pulse, pupils, blood sugar. "She's malnourished and dehydrated," the doctor said. "When was her last meal?" Eli's small voice trembled. "Yesterday. I gave her my soup." The doctor nodded, her eyes softening. "You did good, sweetheart." Jake watched as she worked, inserting in 4-line with practiced speed. "She's going to need a hospital," Dr. Singh said. "If she doesn't get stabilized soon, her organs could start failing." "There's no phone service here," Jake replied. "And the roads are mud. We can't get an ambulance out." Dr. Singh frowned. "Then she'll have to make it through the night. I'll stay until morning." Eli and Lila huddled together on the couch, eyes fixed on their mother. The bikers had seen a lot: prison fights, overdoses, back alley chaos, but this was different. This was quiet suffering, the kind that crept into bones and stayed there. Thunder rattled the walls again. Mason wiped his brow. "What kind of guy leaves his kids like this?" Dr. Singh's expression hardened. "The kind who thinks someone else will fix the mess he made." Jake didn't respond. He'd been that kind of man once. Before the serpents. Before sobriety. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Dr. Singh stayed by the mother's side, adjusting fluids, whispering words of reassurance. The bikers busied themselves fixing what they could: mopping leaks, sweeping glass, lighting candles. By midnight, the storm had eased to a soft drizzle. The air inside smelled faintly of wet wood and rain. "Vitals are stabilizing," Dr. Singh finally said. "She's weak but alive." Jake nodded. "Thank you." The doctor studied him for a long moment. "You're not what I expected when I heard biker gang." Jake gave a small smile. "We get that a lot." From the corner, Eli spoke again, voice small. "Will Mom wake up?" Dr. Singh reached out, brushing his hair back gently. "She will, honey. but she needs rest. So do you. Jake crouched beside the kids. We'll keep watch, all right? You two sleep. No one's going to hurt you. Eli hesitated, then nodded. He curled up beside his sister, both of them asleep within minutes, their faces lit by candlelight. Exhaustion etched deep. Jake stood quietly, watching them. Ghost came up beside him. We could have kept riding, boss. Yeah, Jake murmured. But then what kind of men would we be? Outside, the storm had almost cleared. But just as calm settled over the house, a loud crack echoed in the distance. Not thunder this time, metal against wood. Dr. Singh froze. What was that? Jake's eyes narrowed toward the tree line. Headlights again. Closer. Not the doctor's truck this time. This one was older, rusted, crawling toward the house with purpose. Jake's hand went to his knife as the engine idled outside, and for the first time, Eli whispered the word Jake had been dreading. Dad. The old truck's headlights sliced across the yard, bouncing off puddles and weeds. The rumble of its engine cut through the night like a growl. Jake stood on the porch, drenched in dim light, his hand resting casually on the handle of his knife. Inside, Dr. Singh froze mid-motion, while Eli's breath quickened. That's him. The boy whispered, voice trembling. Jake's jaw tightened. Stay inside, kid. The truck door creaked open, and a man stumbled out. Tall, heavy-shouldered, late 30s maybe, with a week's worth of stubble and eyes glazed from booze. He slammed the door behind him and swaggered toward the porch, half angry, half confused. What the hell's going on here? He slurred. Whose bikes are those? Jake didn't move. Evening. The man squinted. Who the hell are you? Name's Jake Turner. These are my brothers. We found your boy on the road. Your wife's inside. She's sick. The man's lips twisted. Sick? She's always sick. Drama queen, that one. Behind Jake, Ghost muttered. Real charmer. The man's eyes darted past Jake to the faint glow inside. You got no right being here. Jake took a step forward, his presence steady, voice low. You left your family with no food, no water, no help for days. You think we're gonna apologize for showing up? The man scoffed, trying to stand taller. You don't know a damn thing about me. Maybe not, Jake said. But I know what a coward looks like. That hit home. The man's face darkened. You calling me a coward? Jake didn't blink. If I had another word for someone who walks away from his kids, I'd use it. Before the man could answer, a small voice broke through the rain. Dad? Eli stood in the doorway, trembling. His sister clung to his leg. A thunderous night on a lonely American highway turns into something unforgettable when a desperate Barefoot boy runs into a biker gang's path, begging them to follow him home. The crew hesitates until their leader, Jake, looks into the boy's terrified eyes and makes a choice that will change all their lives. The last of the sunlight was bleeding out over the Tennessee hills when the steel serpents rumbled down Route 19. 8. Harley engines echoed through the trees like thunder, their headlights slicing through the darkening woods. Jake Turner, the leader, rode at the front, gray beard brushing against the wind, leather vest gleaming with dust and road grit. They had just finished a 10-hour charity ride for wounded veterans. Everyone was exhausted, hungry, and itching to find a bar before the rain hit. That's when Jake saw movement near the guardrail. Small, frantic, human. At first, he thought it was an animal. Then came a cry. Stop. He barked. The bike screeched, tires grinding against gravel. One by one, the serpents came to a halt, the smell of burning rubber mixing with pine and oil. What the hell, Jake? Mason shouted over the engines. Jake didn't answer. He was already off his bike. Out of the tree line stumbled a boy, maybe 9 years old, barefoot, shivering, and covered in dirt. His small hands clutched his torn t-shirt like it was armor. Please, the boy gasped. Please, you have to help me. My mom, she won't wake up. Jake knelt in front of him, his heavy boots sinking into the mud. Slow down, son. What's your name? Eli. All right, Eli, Jake said softly. Where's your mom? The boy pointed down a narrow dirt path that cut through the forest. Our house? It's that way. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Please, she's really sick. The other bikers exchanged uneasy glances. They weren't in the business of roadside rescues. They were good men, sure, but they'd seen setups before. Traps. Bad stories starting just like this one. Could be a scam, muttered Ghost. The oldest rider after Jake, kid's bleeding, grunted Bear. The largest of the crew, his scarred face unreadable. Ain't no scam. Jake's gut twisted. Something in the boy's trembling voice hit him deep, past the armor of years and asphalt. Eli, Jake said, rising. You're riding with me. He lifted the boy onto his bike, settling him up front. Hang tight. Show me the way. Eli nodded, wiping tears from his cheeks. Steel serpents, Jake called back to the others. We ride. Engines roared back to life, a storm of chrome and noise swallowing the quiet night. They followed the boy's pointing hand into the forest, the road narrowing until it was little more than a scar of mud and roots. Rain began to fall. Light at first, then steady. Trees leaned close, their branches clawing at leather jackets. The path was rough, dangerous even, but Jake didn't slow down. Beside him, Mason shouted over the wind, This doesn't feel right, brother. Doesn't have to, Jake yelled back. We're doing it anyway. 5 minutes later, Eli pointed through the rain. There! Ahead stood a broken farmhouse, windows boarded, porch sagging, paint long since peeled away. The yard was choked with weeds taller than the boy himself. One of the shutters swung loose, creaking in the wind. Jake killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. Eli jumped down, nearly tripping over his own feet. Hurry! He cried, bolting toward the porch. The serpents followed close behind, boots splashing through puddles. The front door hung crooked on one hinge. Inside it was pitch black. Jake pushed it open, and the smell hit them. Rot, sweat, desperation. A shape lay slumped on the couch, half hidden under a blanket. Jake stepped closer. Lightning flashing through the window, illuminating the face of a woman, pale and still. Her hand dangling limp beside a pile of empty pill bottles. Jesus, Mason whispered. She's still breathing. Eli grabbed her hand. Mom, please wake up. Jake turned to his crew. Bear, Mason, with me. Ghost, check the rest of the house. Something creaked down the hall. And then from the shadows came a whisper, a child's voice. Don't hurt us. Jake froze. There was another one. 2 kids, one half-dead mother, and 8 bikers who just realized this wasn't a rescue. It was the start of something much bigger. The smell of rot clung to the walls like mold. Jake stepped carefully across the warped floorboards, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Behind him, the other steel serpents fanned out, boots creaking, leather squeaking, breath held tight. Eli stayed glued to Jake's side, clutching his arm as though he might vanish. His little chest rose and fell too fast, panic still raw. Bear knelt beside the couch, checking the woman's pulse with thick, scarred fingers. She's alive, he said quietly, but barely. Weak as paper. Dehydration? Jake asked. Bear nodded. And hunger. Look at her hands, bones showing through. Mason turned toward the kitchen. I'll find some water. He disappeared into the next room. Moments later, the sound of a faucet squealing echoed, followed by a hollow silence. No water pressure, Mason called. Place is bone dry. Jake crouched beside the woman. Her face was ghostly under the beam, sweat glistening on her forehead. She couldn't have been more than 35, but exhaustion had carved her into someone twice that age. Eli, Jake said gently, when's the last time your mom ate? Eli hesitated. Yesterday, I think. We only had a little soup left. I gave it to my sister. Sister? Ghost called from down the hallway. We got company, Jake. Jake stood instantly. Eli's face went pale. Don't, the boy whispered. She's scared. Jake moved slowly toward the voice. Ghost's flashlight flickered against a cracked bedroom door. There, curled up beneath a broken bed frame, was a little girl, maybe 6. She was wrapped in a filthy pink blanket, eyes wide with terror, clutching a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. It's okay, sweetheart, Jake said softly, kneeling. "We're not here to hurt you." She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Eli ran past Jake and dropped to his knees. "Layla, it's okay. These guys helped me." The little girl blinked once, then crawled out slowly. She moved like a stray animal, hesitant, trembling. When she reached Eli, she buried her face in his shoulder, and for a long moment, there was only the sound of rain against the roof. Jake exhaled. Something heavy pressing behind his ribs. Back in the living room, Bear had found a few orange prescription bottles on the floor. "She's got meds, antidepressants, maybe anxiety stuff, but most of these are empty. Expired too." "Figures," Mason muttered, returning with a bucket of collected rainwater. "No food, no water, no medicine. Guy who lived here really took care of his family, hmm?" "Where's your dad, Eli?" Jake asked quietly. Eli's voice cracked. "He left 4 days ago. Said he was going to get gas and cigarettes." Jake's jaw tightened. "And he didn't come back?" Eli shook his head. Lila clung to him tighter. Ghost muttered a curse under his breath. 4 days out here alone, damn." The bikers looked at each other, 8 men used to living hard lives. Used to chaos, but not this kind of suffering. Jake turned to Bear. "She needs a doctor, now." Bear nodded. "Nearest town's 15 miles out. I'll take Mason." "Do it," Jake said. "And hurry."